Every kingdom remembers its kings for their power and their palaces. But there was once a ruler whose name lived not in the walls of his palace, but in the hearts of his people. He was called the Servant King, and this is his story asterisk. Long before he became King, Alexander was just a young prince growing up in the golden halls of a vast empire. Every morning servants polished the marble floor before he stepped on it. Every meal was served in silver bowls, while music played softly in the background. Every person who saw him bowed so low they dared not lift their eyes. The kingdom believed Alexander had everything, yet he felt empty. He smiled at ceremonies, but his heart stayed quiet. He ruled over comfort, but had never seen life beyond the palace. While his father, King Theon, often told him a king must be obeyed without question. That is how order is kept, and Alexander nodded, though his heart whispered something different. He wondered what order truly meant if it lived in fear. One summer evening, he slipped away from a royal dinner. As he wandered the long corridors, he heard a faint cough echoing from the servants' hall. He followed the sound and found a young boy, barely his age, kneeling on the floor, scrubbing stains from the marble. The boy's hands were bleeding. Alexander asked gently, "Why are you working at this hour?" The boy looked up frightened and said, "Because my father is ill and we need bread tomorrow." The prince froze. No one had ever spoken to him like that. He had never imagined hunger could exist under the same roof as his gold. He quietly took off his ring and left it beside the bucket. The boy stared as Alexander walked away that night. The prince could not sleep asterisk. At sunrise, Alexander looked at his reflection. In the mirror, the golden robe glittered in the light, but it felt heavy. He whispered, "I wear what the people made for me. Yet I have never seen the people." He changed into plain clothes and left the palace through the servant gate. The guards did not recognize him. For the first time in his life, he walked through the streets of his own kingdom as one of its people. He saw children barefoot in the dust, chasing each other with broken toys. He saw an old man sleeping beside a dry fountain. He saw mothers bargaining in the market for a few grains of rice. No one bowed to him, no one cared who he was, and for the first time he felt free. Helped an old woman carry her basket up a hill. When she thanked him, he smiled and said, "The palace is not far from here. Does the king not help you?" She sighed. "The king has never walked this way." Those words carved deep inside his heart. He returned to the palace that night with tears he could not explain asterisk. Days turned into weeks, and Alexander's secret visits continued. He began to spend more time in the city than in the palace. One afternoon, the sky turned dark and a heavy storm rolled in. Rain poured across the streets as people ran to find shelter. He saw a woman trip and drop her bread into the mud. Without thinking, he ran to her side and picked it up. The bread was ruined. The woman cried softly. Alexander took off his robe and wrapped it around the bread to keep it warm from the rain. She looked up and said, "Thank you, young man," he replied. Quietly, "You should thank the king." She smiled sadly. The king does not walk where you walk. When he heard that, his heart broke. He looked around at the broken houses and wet faces and realized that the crown waiting for him was not a symbol of pride. It was a weight of responsibility. That night he stood before his father. He said, "Father, the people live in pain." Theon looked at him sternly. "That is not your concern. A king must rule, not serve." But Alexander answered, "Then I will not be that kind." Of King Asterisk. When King Theon passed away, the crown was placed upon Alexander's head. But the ceremony was different from every king before him. He refused the gold robe. He refused the jeweled sword. He walked barefoot to the throne and said a crown is not to be worn above people, but among them. He declared a new rule for the kingdom. Each morning before sunrise, the king would perform one act of service. No meal, no meeting, no comfort, until he served someone in need. At first, the nobles whispered. In anger, they said he shamed the royal name. But soon the people began to love him. He cleaned the streets beside workers. He taught children in the village school. He sat beside sick farmers in the field hospitals he built. He opened the palace gates. every week, and anyone could walk in to share their worries. He listened not as a ruler, but as a friend. Soon, his kingdom changed. Crime fell, peace spread, and hope returned to the hearts of the poor. The walls of his palace began to glow, not from gold, but from gratitude. Years later, when another kingdom declared war, Alexander was urged to hide, but he refused. He walked to the battlefield not wearing armor, but a simple cloak. His soldiers asked why. He said, "If my people bleed for peace, I will stand beside them, not behind them." The war ended not by blood, but by words. Alexander spoke to the enemy king and offered to share food and medicine instead of swords. The world called him a fool, but his people called him a savior. In his final years, Alexander wrote a letter to his future heir. It said, "A crown made of gold shines for a moment. A crown made of service shines forever." When he died, the people carried his coffin on their shoulders. They refused to let the nobles touch it because he was not just their king. He was their brother, their healer, their friend. At the end of the ceremony, an old woman placed a single piece of bread on his grave, the same kind of bread he had once saved in the rain, and whispered, "The king finally walks with us forever." Greatness is not in ruling the world, it is in healing it. Power means nothing until it becomes compassion. If you were born with power, what would you do with it? Would you build walls or bridges? Tell me in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to English Story Haven, where every story reminds us that the heart of a king begins with the soul of a servant.